At the Colosseum, watching a gladiator game wasn't just about what you saw, it was also about who you were in Roman society. Tickets, called tickets, were free, but don't think that meant equality. Each person received a sign with a number, indicating which gate to enter and where to sit, all based on their social class. Rome was organized even in entertainment. There were 80 entries, all numbered precisely to avoid confusion. Senators entered through noble gates, while the common people were guided to the intermediate levels and the poorest went straight to the top. No fuss. The architecture of the Colosseum was so well thought out that tens of thousands of people could fit in within minutes, like a ballet of stone and crowd. And before the show even started, social segregation was already on the scene. Hold on. Before I continue, I need your help. YouTube will only share this video with more people if it has a lot of interaction. In other words, without your comment, this knowledge could be buried and never reach those who need it. If this content makes sense to you, comment 1. If you disagree, comment 0 and tell me why. I want to see at least 100 comments here so that YouTube understands that this subject needs to be spread. So comment now and be part of this mission to reveal the secrets of ancient Rome. Even before stepping into the stands, the atmosphere around the Colosseum was already one of celebration and euphoria. The streets were filled with people like a real Roman carnival. Vendors shouted, offering bread, wine, lucky charms. Street performers danced, juggled, told jokes, and drew laughter from the crowd. It was as if the entire city had stopped to watch. And it did. The games were scheduled in advance and coincided with holidays or religious festivals. During the inauguration, Emperor Titus did something that Rome would never forget. Straight days of combat and spectacle, without a break. The poet Juvenal, with a touch of criticism, summed it all up in a famous phrase. The Roman people only wanted bread and circuses. And there, outside the Colosseum, the circus was already on fire, and the people loved it. Inside the Colosseum, it wasn't just the fight that showed who was boss. The seats spoke for themselves too. The closer you got to the arena, the more power you had. The senators? They sat in the front row on polished marble seats, almost feeling the blood splattering. Above them, the knights, a wealthy and influential class, also had a privileged view. The plebeians occupied the middle of the stands, divided between the most prestigious and the simplest. And up at the top, almost touching the clouds, were the foreigners, the freedmen, the women, and the poor. The slaves? They only entered if they were working at the event. Each step of the stands was a step into life in Rome. Even during entertainment, no one forgot their place. And the curious thing? Even the furthest seats had a good view of the arena. But prestige, that was reserved for those below. The Colosseum was a masterpiece of engineering. Even with more than 50,000 people inside, everyone could see what was happening in the arena. This is because the Romans thought of everything: the oval structure, the inclined stands, and even the position of the sun during the day. Those, up there, far from the action, still had a clear view of the fighting. And that wasn't all. The arena could transform in the blink of an eye. With elevator systems, ramps, and hidden mechanisms, it became a forest, a desert, and even a sea. Yes, they did naval battles inside the Colosseum. The sand floor absorbed the blood, but it also served as a stage for shows that mixed illusion, technique, and brutality. It was a complete sensory experience. Seeing was guaranteed. Being seen was a privilege. The entire Colosseum vibrated when the bronze trumpet sounded. It was the signal. The emperor was coming, and he never came alone. Guards, counselors, senators, the entire Roman elite paraded behind him. The people stood up, applauded, shouted, called out his name. It was as if a god were entering. Titus, for example, was so adored that, according to historians, the sound of applause made the Colosseum tremble. The crowd was moved, not only by his power, but because they knew. The presence of the emperor was what made that spectacle official. And he had the ultimate power to decide who lived and who died in the arena. When he sat down, everything calmed down. It was the silence before the storm. The game was about to begin, and the lives inside were in the hands of one man. The most anticipated moment began with a parade that seemed choreographed. Gladiators emerged from the tunnels, side by side with caged beasts and prisoners of war. The crowd burst into applause. They walked in a straight line firmly to the center of the arena, and then they stopped, looked at the emperor and raised their weapons. It was the famous salute. "Hail Caesar, those who are about to die, salute you." The entire Colosseum fell silent. It was as if everyone felt the weight of what was to come. Each one performed their ritual. Some prayed, others touched the sand as if asking the earth for strength. Others hit their weapons against each other. It wasn't just fighting, it was almost a theater of death, and people loved watching. Every gesture carried tension. The show had already started, but the blood had not yet been shed. If this content is making sense to you so far, do the following. Give me a signal. Comment 1 below so I know you're with me on this journey. And remember, YouTube only spreads this knowledge if it has a lot of interaction. If you haven't commented yet, now is the time. I want to see this video full of opinions so that this topic continues to reach more people. When the arena fell silent, the gladiators began their duel. But it wasn't just fighting, it was pure tactics. They walked in circles, studying each other, waiting for the right moment. Each had his own style. One used a net and a trident, another came with a short sword and a heavy shield. It was like a bloody chess game, agility versus brutality, intelligence versus instinct. The audience up there cheered. They shouted advice, applauded, complained. And when one fell, the arena froze. The decision came from the emperor, or from the people. With a thumbs up or thumbs down, the fate of the defeated was sealed. It was a moment of pure tension. Everyone held their breath. One man's gesture decided whether another would live or die. And this power, this unpredictability, was what made the Colosseum pulse. It wasn't just combat. It was a spectacle with real soul and death. If you thought that the break was a time to rest, you were wrong. The Colosseum didn't stop. While they cleaned the blood from the arena, new attractions appeared. And they were brutal. Hunters armed only with spears and nets came to face beasts brought from all corners of the empire. Lions, tigers, crocodiles, even rhinoceroses. There were also staged fights between dwarves, women, and even combats against animals. It was exotic, shocking, and purposeful, but nothing compared to public executions. Criminals and prisoners were forced to act out Greek and Roman myths and actually die in the role. The audience watched as if it were theater, only with live deaths. Tito, for example, organized mass execution just to please the people. And he applauded, because in Rome, even killing could be entertainment. When the last fight was over, the arena became a field of destruction. Workers came in with shovels, buckets, and brooms. The sand floor, soaked in blood, had to be cleaned before the audience left. But those who survived, they had their moment. The victorious gladiators were even called emperor. The crowd stood up, shouted, applauded as if they were in the presence of heroes. And in a way they were. Some received laurel wreaths, others coins, lands, or even freedom, if they were slaves. The emperor's gesture was worth its weight in gold. A single gesture could change a man's destiny. This ceremony was not just a prize. It was a consecration. It was Rome saying, "You survived the show, now you are part of it." When it was all over, the Colosseum had to be emptied. And fast. Imagine more than 50,000 people leaving at the same time. But Rome thought of everything. 80 organized exits, wide and well-ventilated corridors. Within minutes, the public was already in the streets. And outside, trade was booming. Wine, bread, fruit. The vendors knew that after so much blood and emotion, people wanted to spend. In the taverns, conversation flowed freely. Debates about the battles, criticisms of the emperor, bets on the next game. The spectacle continued, only now in the yar-yu form of conversation, laughter, and controversy. And if you've made it this far, it's because you love history as much as I do. So leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and click on the video on the screen. There's a surprising secret about the Roman world that few people know about. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. See you there.